When I was 12, my parents left me at a train station as a joke. They said, "Let's see how she gets home." I never went back to them after that. Now I'm 32 and living in Chicago working as a graphic designer. This morning my phone lit up with 29 missed calls from a number I didn't know. In that moment, I was right back to being that scared 12-year-old standing alone in Union Station, watching my parents drive away laughing to everyone else. Our family looked perfect. Dad owned the biggest hardware store in town and everyone loved him. Mom ran a bakery and her pies won prizes every year. People thought we were the perfect American dream family, but at home it was a very different story. Dad drank a lot, and when he was in a bad mood, we all had to be careful not to upset him. Mom never protected me. She always made excuses for him. They called it tough love, but it was really just being mean. When I was 7, they left me at a grocery store for over an hour because I asked for candy. When they finally came back, Mom said, "Maybe now you'll stop being greedy." I had been crying at the customer service desk while the manager was about to call the police. My older brother Ethan was the golden child. He could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, was blamed for everything. If dinner was cold, it was my fault. If Dad had a bad day, somehow that was my fault too. On my 11th birthday, they promised me a small party. Instead, they drove me to an amusement park, handed me $20, and left me alone all day. When they finally came back, they said it was to teach me independence. There was no cake, no presents, and when I cried, they called me ungrateful. After years of moments like that, I learned to stay quiet and hide. I spent as much time as I could at friends' houses and found comfort in drawing. Art was the only place where I felt safe. The day before the train station incident, I brought home a report card with all A's except one A. Instead of being happy, they got mad. That night, I overheard them in the kitchen. Dad said, "She's too soft. It needs a lesson she won't forget." Mom agreed. The next morning, they told me we were going to Chicago for a family trip. It was just the three of us, and I let myself hope maybe this was their way of making things better. We parked at Union Station. The place was huge, loud, and full of rushing people. Mom told me to wait by a big pillar while they moved the car and got food. I asked if I could come, but Dad laughed. "It's just 15 minutes. You're 12 years old." I waited. 15 minutes turned into an hour. Then I saw our blue car driving past outside. I waved, thinking they were coming to get me. Instead, Dad grinned and waved like it was a game. Mom rolled down her window and shouted, "Let's see how you find your way home." They laughed as they drove away. I was alone in a city 3 hours from home. That was the day my old life ended. At first I thought my parents would come back. I told myself it was just a short lesson. Any minute they'd pull up, laugh, and say, "Surprise, did you learn your lesson?" But deep down, I started to realize the truth. They were driving back to Pennsylvania without me. Panic hit me hard. I ran back inside the station, breathing fast, tears streaming down my face. The huge building that had looked so grand now felt terrifying. There were too many people, too much noise, and too many exits. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I had no phone, no one I knew in Chicago, no ID, and not enough money for a ticket home. For 2 hours, I wandered aimlessly, sometimes crying, sometimes trying to hold it in. I was even scared to ask for help. My parents had always warned me that strangers were dangerous and that police took bad kids away to awful places. Around 3:30 p.m., a station worker named Janet noticed me. She had kind eyes and silver hair streaked through her bun. She knelt down and asked, "Honey, are you lost?" I shook my head. I'd been trained not to tell strangers my problems, but she kept asking gently about my parents. Finally, I broke down. 3 hours of fear came pouring out in loud sobs. They left me. I cried. They told me to find my way home, but home is in Pennsylvania. Janet's face turned serious. She took me to a quiet office, gave me some water, and let me explain everything. Then she called her boss, who brought in a security guard named Marcus. He asked about my parents, our address, and phone number. I saw the adults exchange grim looks. "We need to call the police," Marcus said. "What your parents did is abandonment. That's against the law." By 4:45 p.m., I was sitting in a small Union Station office while Officer Teresa Ramirez wrote a report. She took me to the police station. I sat, wrapped in a blanket, not because I was cold, but because I felt empty inside. Officer Ramirez said they'd tried calling my house twice, but no one answered. "Maybe they're still driving back," I said, clinging to a tiny bit of hope. She just nodded gently, but I could tell she didn't believe it. The police station didn't look like what I imagined. No bars or cells, just desks and phones. Still, the fact that I was here because my parents left me made my stomach twist. A woman with curly brown hair came over. "I'm Laura Donovan from the Department of Children and Family Services," she said. She asked me questions for an hour. Had my parents done this before? Yes, but never this bad. Did they hit me? No. Did I feel safe at home? I couldn't answer right away, and that was enough. "What's going to happen to me tonight?" I whispered. Laura told me they couldn't, to reach my parents, so I'd have to stay in emergency foster care. The words made me shiver. I'd heard bad stories about foster homes. Laura tried to reassure me. The Williams family has worked with us for years. They have a daughter about your age, she said. By 9 p.m., I was sitting at the Williams dining table, staring at a plate of spaghetti I couldn't bring myself to eat. Diane and Robert Williams were kind. They tried their best to make me feel comfortable. Their daughter Alicia showed me to the guest room and offered to lend me pajamas and a toothbrush. He said, "Your parents will probably come get you tomorrow," trying to be helpful. I just nodded, though I didn't believe it. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment my parents drove away, laughing. What kind of parents did that? What had I done to deserve it? The next morning, after a breakfast I barely touched, Laura Donovan came back. One look at her face told me everything. "We reached your parents late last night," she said. "Are they coming to get me?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Not yet, she replied. "They said they were teaching you a lesson about independence and problem solving." Tears filled my eyes. By leaving me in another state. They claimed they planned to call the station after a few hours, but things got complicated when police became involved. In other words, they hadn't planned to call at all. Laura told me my brother Ethan had been surprised when they came home without me. That was a small comfort at least. He hadn't been part of it. But it didn't take away the hurt. "What happens now?" I asked. Laura said we'd meet at her office tomorrow with my parents. A judge would also be involved, and there would be a hearing later in the week. The Williams family was kind over the next day, but I felt like a ghost in their house. Diane chatted with me. Robert offered to play board games, and Alicia invited me to watch TV. I went along, but inside I was numb. On Monday afternoon, Laura drove me to a downtown office. She told me I didn't have to talk to my parents if I didn't want to. Inside the conference room, her supervisor and a family court liaison were waiting. 5 minutes later, my parents walked in with a lawyer. They looked nothing like the confident, laughing people from Union Station. Mom tried to step toward me. I flinched back. The meeting started and my parents told their side of the story. They said they had been worried about my lack of self-reliance. Leaving me at the train station was supposed to be a controlled life lesson. They claimed they'd circled back after 20 minutes to check on me, but couldn't find me. They expected me to figure out how to call home, proving I could solve problems on my own. Dad insisted we were teaching her independence. "Kids today are too coddled," Mom added. She could have called collect. I sat in silence, stunned. They weren't sorry. They truly believed they had done nothing wrong. When the court liaison asked if I wanted to go home with them, I surprised myself. "No," I said firmly. "I don't want to go back." Dad looked shocked. "Don't be ridiculous," he said. The liaison cut him off, explaining that I would stay in temporary custody until the court decided. As the meeting ended, Mom tried again. "Jennifer, honey, you're overreacting. We were just trying to teach you to abandon people who trust you," I interrupted, tears running down my face. Then I was escorted out of the room, their voices fading behind me. I knew I would never see Ridgeview as home again. The next few weeks were a blur of court hearings, social worker visits, and therapy sessions. My stay with the Williams family was extended, but their home still felt temporary, like I was just waiting for my real life to start again. A month after the train station incident, I met Thomas and Sarah Miller. They were in their early 40s, both with warm smiles. Thomas taught high school art, and Sarah was a pediatric nurse. They had no children of their own, but had been foster parents for over 10 years. "We believe every child deserves safety, respect, and room to grow," Sarah told me. "No pressure to talk about anything until you're ready," Thomas added. Their home was a modest 2-story house in Evanston, just north of Chicago. My room had pale yellow walls, a window seat overlooking a garden, and empty bookshelves waiting to be filled. "We want you to make it your own," Sarah said. "Pictures, posters, books, whatever makes you comfortable." "What are the rules?" I asked, bracing myself. "Basic respect and safety," Thomas replied. "Let us know where you are, help with chores, and try your best in school. We'll figure out the rest together." I waited for the hidden rules or impossible standards. They never came. The first time I spilled a glass of juice at dinner, I froze. Expecting the usual explosion of anger, Sarah didn't get angry when I spilled juice at the table. She just handed me a cloth and said, "It's okay. Accidents happen." I was so used to people snapping at me that I didn't know how to react. I kept waiting for the Millers to stop being nice and show the meanness I had seen in adults before, but they didn't. Every day, they were patient and kind, while I was getting used to them. The court case with my parents was still going on. They had to go to parenting classes and counseling. But Grace, my social worker, said they were barely trying. They told people that the state had overreacted to what they called a simple parenting choice. Dr. Reynolds, my therapist, explained things in a way I had never heard before. She told me what my parents had done was emotional abuse, neglect, and abandonment. She said I had PTSD and anxiety, and she taught me ways to calm down when I felt scared or upset. She also kept saying, "What they did was not your fault." At first, I didn't believe her, but after hearing it over and over, I started to. 3 months after I moved in with the Millers, my brother Ethan came to visit. He was 16 now and didn't seem like the perfect golden child anymore, just a shy, awkward teenager. Sat in the living room. Sarah stayed in the kitchen, close enough to hear us but giving us privacy. They miss you, Ethan finally said, looking at his hands. Do they? I asked. In their way, he answered. Dad's drinking more. Mom keeps cleaning even when everything's already clean. Are they sorry? I asked. He hesitated. They're sorry you're gone. I don't think they understand why it was wrong. What about you? Do you understand? I asked. He looked at me and said, I know they were harder on you. I should have done something. I'm sorry, Jen. It wasn't enough to fix the past, but it was honest. Before he left, he hugged me and whispered, I'm glad you're safe. We didn't speak again for years. 6 months after the train station incident, the court hearing finally happened. The judge read the reports, listened to my story, and looked at all the evidence. She decided my parents had a long pattern of emotional abuse and had put me in danger. My parents were given 2 choices: join a strict 2-year program with supervised visits, or give up their parental rights completely. They chose to give me up. My dad told the court, we won't be made out to be villains for trying to raise a strong independent daughter. The state thinks it can do better. Let it. With one signature, Frank and Karen Taylor were no longer my parents. 3 months later, on my 13th birthday, Thomas and Sarah asked if I wanted them to adopt me. I didn't even have to think. Yes, I said right away. Before my 15th birthday, it became official. I even asked to change my name from Jennifer Taylor to Megan Miller. Sarah smiled and told me, you'll always be whoever you want to be in our home. We're just lucky to be part of your journey. During those years, art became my safe place. Thomas noticed my talent early and gave me sketchbooks, paints, and gentle advice. My drawings slowly changed. At first they were dark and broken, but over time they became colorful and full of hope. High school wasn't easy. Making friends took time, and I still had anxiety sometimes, but I found a small group of other art students who accepted me. Thomas and Sarah encouraged me to aim high for college, so I applied to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. The day I got accepted, Sarah cried and Thomas framed the letter. For the first time, I believed my future could be bright. Before I left for college, I made a choice I had been thinking about for years. I would cut all ties with my birth family. Are you sure? Sarah asked gently. I'm sure, I told her. The Taylors are my past. You're my family now. College. I felt like stepping into another world. The campus was full of creative people with bright hair, bold clothes, and big ideas. Professors spoke about art like it could change the world. I studied graphic design and learned to mix creativity with communication. Every project I finished made me feel more confident, helping to rebuild what my parents had tried to tear down. Thomas and Sarah always cared for me, even from far away. They sent me little packages during my exams, gave me space to be independent, and always reminded me their home was my safe place if I ever needed it. They showed me what a healthy parent-child relationship could look like. In my second year of college, I met Audrey in a color theory class. She loved experimenting with bright neon colors, while I preferred calmer shades. Somehow, our differences made us closer. One day over coffee, she said, "You're the most careful artist I've ever met. Every stroke you make is on purpose." I asked if that was bad. She smiled and said, "Not bad, just interesting. I wonder what would happen if you let go a little." Audrey became a close friend who challenged me creatively but respected my personal space. When I told her bits of my past, she didn't pity me. She just said, "They really messed up losing someone like you." It was Audrey who encouraged me to try dating in my 3rd year. "You don't have to trust everyone," she said, "but maybe trust someone." That's how I met Brian, a kind photography student. Our first date at coffee turned into a 5-hour conversation. He told me about growing up on a dairy farm with 3 younger sisters. I told him a softened version of my past. My birth parents weren't good people, and I was adopted as a teen. He simply said, "Family is complicated. I'm more interested in who you are now." Our relationship moved slowly. Brian never pushed me into anything before I was ready. The first time he reached for my hand and I pulled away, he didn't get upset. He just kept talking like nothing happened. The next time, I was ready. My therapist, Dr. Reynolds, had taught me that trust issues affect all relationships, not just romantic ones. The important thing was to notice when my reactions were about the past, not the present. 8 months in, we had our first big fight. A mix-up in plans left me alone at a restaurant for over an hour. When Brian finally arrived, apologizing for his dead phone, I was in the bathroom, panicking. "You left me," I said, carrying years of abandonment in those words. I told him about the train station from my childhood. He didn't give empty comfort. He just said, "I can't promise. I'll never disappoint you, but I will never purposely hurt you, and I'll always come back." That honesty brought us closer. When graduation came, I felt both excited and scared. Thanks to a professor's recommendation, I got an interview at a design firm called Element Design. They liked my portfolio but said they liked my thoughtfulness even more. 2 weeks after graduating, I started the job and moved into my first apartment, my own space. I painted the walls soft blue, hung up my art, and filled the room with plants. Work was challenging. I was good at the design part, but presenting ideas to clients pushed me out of my comfort zone. My boss Nadia encouraged me, saying, "Your work speaks for itself. Trust it and confidence will follow." She was right. Within 2 years I was leading big projects. The scared girl from the train station felt far away at 27. Brian proposed during a visit to Thomas and Sarah's house. He'd asked a blessing first. We married in a small ceremony with Audrey as my maid of honor and Thomas walking me down the aisle. During our mother-daughter dance, Sarah whispered, "You've built something beautiful." I told her, "We built it together." Not long after my birth parents reached out, Karen sent me a Facebook message. "Jennifer, we've been thinking about you, would love to reconnect." I showed it to Brian and Dr. Reynolds. With their support, I decided to keep my boundaries. I blocked the account and did the same when more messages came. Instead of letting it ruin me, I poured my energy into starting my own business, Miller Creative, a design studio for organizations helping children and families in crisis. The name honored the family who saved me. From our spare bedroom, the business grew. Brian supported me fully, and we decided to talk about kids later. I still feared repeating the mistakes of my birth parents, but Dr. Reynolds reminded me, "The fact you're worried about this means you're already different from them." Eventually, we bought a small house with space for both our offices and a guest room. The day we moved in, Brian brought home a rescue dog, a gentle, one-eyed mutt named Scout. "Thought you two might understand each other," he said. Scout became my shadow, his unconditional love helping me heal even more. Life felt steady. My business thrived. My marriage grew stronger. Thomas and Sarah became the parents I'd always wanted, and Brian's family welcomed me without judgment. I had built a good life. The past was still there, but it no longer controlled me until this morning. My phone showed 29 missed calls from an unknown number in Pennsylvania. My heart pounded. Scout pressed against my legs, sensing my fear. Sunlight filled the kitchen, making the half-eaten toast and warm coffee on the table look peaceful, but everything felt different now. I pressed play and held my breath. "Jennifer or Megan?" "I guess it's Megan now." The voice was male, older, but I knew it instantly. "It's Ethan, your brother. I know it's been years and you probably don't want to hear from us, but Dad had a heart attack last night. It's bad. The doctors aren't sure if he'll make it. I thought you should know. My number is..." I hung up before he finished. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone. Scout, my dog, whined and nudged my hand with his nose. "I'm okay," I whispered, more to myself than to him, but I wasn't. Everything I had built to keep the past away was starting to break. Then more notifications came in. An email from an address I didn't know. The subject read, "Your father, please read." A Facebook message request popped up. "Jennifer, it's Mom. Please call. It's urgent. 20 years of silence, and now this flood of messages. Why now? What did they want from me?" My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe properly. The kitchen walls felt like they were closing in. It had been years since I'd had a panic attack this bad. I fumbled for my phone and called Dr. Reynolds. "She could see me in an hour. This is a completely normal reaction," she said in her calm voice as I sat in her office clutching a tissue. "This is a big trigger. It's tied to your deepest trauma." "I don't get it," I said. "I made peace with cutting them off years ago." "Did you?" she asked softly. "Or did you just build a life around not having peace?" The question hit me hard. Had I really healed, or had I just avoided the pain? "What do I do?" I asked finally. "That depends on what you want," she said. "There's no right or wrong here. You can keep your boundaries, that's valid. Or you can talk to them on your own terms. Maybe you need closure, answers, a chance to speak your truth, or even confirmation that leaving was the right choice." I left her office with more questions than answers, but she gave me grounding exercises to help with the anxiety. Back home, I called the two people I trusted most about family matters. Sarah answered on the second ring. "Megan, what a lovely surprise." Hearing her voice made me cry. Through my tears, I told her everything. "Oh, sweetheart," she said. "Tell me what to do." I begged. "You know we can't make that decision for you," she said gently. "But whatever you choose, Thomas and I support you completely. Your relationship or lack of one with your birth family doesn't change anything between us." Then I called Audrey. She came over within an hour and poured us each a glass of wine. "Let's think this through," she said. "Worst case, if you respond, they pull me back into their drama. They make me feel responsible for them. They dismiss everything they did. They hurt me all over again. And worst case, if you don't respond, I might always wonder. I might regret not saying what I needed to say. So this isn't really about them," she said. "It's about what you need." When Brian came home, I was surrounded by printed articles about heart attacks. I had even made a flowchart of possible choices and outcomes. "I see you've been busy," he said, kissing my head. "I need to understand the medical side before I decide." I told him. "So you know, if this is really life or death, or just manipulation," he finished. "Exactly. Is that awful to think?" "No," he said. "It's smart." We stayed up late talking through the possibilities. Brian reminded me I owed my birth family nothing, but that this was also about what would help me. Move forward. By morning, I had my plan. I wouldn't call or visit right away. I'd send a text to Ethan. This is Megan. I got your message about Dad. I need more information before deciding my next steps. How serious is his condition? What do you and Mom expect from me? He replied within minutes. Thanks for responding. It was a major heart attack. He's stable but critical. Triple bypass tomorrow. Mom's a mess. We don't expect anything. Just thought you should know. Would understand completely if you want no part of this. The honesty surprised me. I texted back. I need time to think. I'll be in touch for 3 days. I thought deeply, talked to Dr. Reynolds again, and finally decided I would meet Ethan only. Ethan at a public place to hear more before deciding if I'd see my parents. We chose a coffee shop halfway for both of us. Seeing my brother after 20 years was strange. The teenage boy I remembered was now a middle-aged man with thinning hair and glasses. Megan, he said, standing awkwardly. Thank you for coming. Asterisk, I nodded, skipping the small talk. Tell me about Dad. Ethan sighed, almost relieved to focus on facts. The triple bypass worked, but there were some problems after. I pressed play on the message, holding my breath. Jennifer, or I guess now, Megan. A man's voice came through older, but I knew it right away. Ethan, it's your brother. I know it's been years and you probably don't want to hear from us, but Dad had a heart attack last night. It's bad. The doctors aren't sure if he'll make it. I thought you should know. My number is the message cut off before it finished. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped my phone. Scout, my dog, nudged my hand with his nose. I'm okay, I whispered, though I knew I wasn't. All the walls I'd built inside me to block them out were starting to crack. Minutes later, more messages came. An email from an unknown address. The subject read, Your father, please read. Then, a Facebook message request. Jennifer, it's Mom. Please call. It's urgent. 20 years of silence. And suddenly, all this why now? What did they want from me? The panic attack hit fast. My chest tightened, my breath went shallow, and the kitchen walls felt like they were closing in. I hadn't had one this bad in years. I fumbled for my phone and called Dr. Reynolds. She fit me in within the hour. This is a normal reaction, she said gently in a familiar office, as I gripped a tissue. This is triggering your deepest trauma. I don't get it, I admitted. I made peace with cutting them off years ago. Did you? She asked softly. Or did you just build your life around avoiding that pain? Her question hit me hard. Had I truly healed? Or had I just run away from the wounds? What do? I asked. That depends, she replied. There's no right answer. You can keep your boundaries, that's valid. Or you can engage. On your own terms. What do you need from this? What would I possibly need from them? Only you can answer that. Maybe closure. Maybe answers. Maybe proof you were right to leave. I left with no clear answer, but I had new tools to manage my anxiety at home. I called Sarah, one of the few people I trusted about family matters. Megan, what a nice surprise, she said. The sound of her voice broke me, and I started crying. What can we do? She asked after I explained. Tell me what to do. I pleaded. Asterisk, you know we can't decide for you. But whatever you choose, Thomas and I support you completely. Then I called Audrey, who showed up within an hour, wine in hand. Okay, she said. What's the worst that could happen if you respond? They could pull me back into their mess, make me feel guilty, erase what they did, hurt me all over again. And if you don't respond, I might always wonder, maybe regret not saying what I need to say. So, she said, this isn't about them, it's about what you need. That night, Brian came home to find me surrounded by research on heart attacks. I'd even made a flowchart of possible responses and their consequences. I need to know if this is truly life, or death, or manipulation, I said. That's not terrible to think, he replied. It's smart. We talked late into the night. He reminded me I owed them nothing, but this wasn't about owing. It was about what would help me move forward. By morning, I decided I wouldn't call or visit yet, but I'd text Ethan. This is Megan. I got your message about Dad. I need more information before deciding my next steps. How serious is his condition? What do you and Mom expect from me? Minutes later, he replied, major heart attack. He's stable but critical. Triple bypass tomorrow. Mom's a mess. We don't expect anything. We just thought you should know. I understand if you want no part of this. His sincerity surprised me. I need time to think, I wrote back. 3 days later, after more talks with Dr. Reynolds, I made my choice. I'd meet Ethan alone, in a neutral place, before deciding anything about Mom or Dad when I saw him after 20 years. The teenage boy I remembered was now a middle-aged man in glasses and a wrinkled shirt. Thank you for coming, he said. Tell me about Dad, I asked. He told me the surgery had gone well, but there were complications. Dad was in the ICU. He listed Dad's health problems, high blood pressure, cholesterol, too much drinking. Talked about Mom, their marriage, his own distance from them. He admitted they'd told lies about me, that I'd left for school, or become rebellious. People believed them. You let them? I asked. Yes, he admitted quietly. was young, it was easier. Why reach out now? Partly because Dad's sick, but mostly because my daughter's 12 now, the age you were when it happened. I can't imagine her going through what you did. For 2 hours he told me about his life and about our parents, not defending, not exaggerating. I asked if they'd ever shown true remorse. Sometimes, he said. Dad, when drunk, says he wishes things were different. Mom still struggles, but they've kept your photo on the mantle all these years. That image, my younger self frozen in time, made my skin crawl. Would you visit Dad? He asked. You don't have to talk. I can make sure Mom's not there. I need to think. Whatever you decide is okay, he said. You owe us nothing. That night, Brian supported my leaning toward visiting, but reminded me you're not that powerless 12-year-old anymore. You can leave anytime. The next morning I asked Dr. Reynolds to come with me for support. She agreed. This is your chance to face the past from a place of strength, she said. Only if you want to. I thought about the scared girl I'd been, the life I'd built, the parents who abandoned me, and the man in the hospital bed facing death. Yes, I said. I need to do this, not for them, for me. The hospital hallway felt endless as Dr. Reynolds and I walked toward the ICU. Every step was heavy. The smell, the beeping, the quiet voices, all of it made my anxiety spike. We can take a break, she offered. I shook my head. If I stop, I might not start again. Ethan was waiting outside. Dad's awake but tired. Mom's in the cafeteria. I planned it so she wouldn't be here. She agreed to that. I asked. Not exactly, he admitted. Ethan told me. Dad was still in the ICU. The doctors thought he might get better, but at 68 and with his health problems, it wasn't certain. He'd had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and still drank too much. He had stopped working 5 years ago when his heart started giving him trouble. He sold his hardware store and retired. I tried to match this weak older man in my mind with a strong, larger-than-life father I remembered as a kid. My mom, who had been with him for 45 years, was falling apart. They had always depended on each other for everything. I asked Ethan if he was close to them. He hesitated, then said, yes and no. I live about an hour away, and I see them once a month. My wife Nancy isn't a big fan of theirs, so we keep some distance. I asked him why, and he paused again. After you left, things changed. Or maybe I just started seeing the truth. They never really took responsibility for what happened with you. They told themselves and everyone else a different story. Over time, especially after having my own kids, I couldn't pretend anymore. I wanted to know what they told people about me. He said that at first they told everyone I was staying in Chicago with friends for better school opportunities. Later they said I became rebellious and cut contact, even though they tried their best. Most people believed them because they made themselves look like victims. I felt the old anger rise in me, and you let them last. Yes, he admitted softly. For years I did. I was 18 and leaving for college. It was easier to accept their version than face the truth. I'm not proud of that. I asked him why he was reaching out now. Partly because Dad is sick, he said, but also because my daughter Emma is 12 now, the same age you were when it happened. Seeing her grow up makes it impossible for me to imagine anyone doing to her what they did to you. We talked for almost 2 hours. Ethan told me about his life as an accountant, his wife Nancy, and their 2 kids. He answered my questions about our parents honestly, without defending them but also without making them seem worse than they were. I asked if our parents had ever shown real remorse, not just wishing I hadn't left, but actually admitting they were wrong. Ethan said Dad had sometimes, especially when drinking, admitted he went too far and wished things had been different. Mom, though, still had trouble taking responsibility, but they had both asked about me over the years and kept a picture of me from high school on their mantle. The thought of my younger self sitting in their home like a frozen memory made me uneasy. Ethan then asked if I'd consider visiting Dad in the hospital. He promised I wouldn't have to speak to him if I didn't want to and that he could arrange it so Mom wouldn't be there. I told him I needed time to think. He said that whatever I decided was okay and that I didn't owe them anything. That night, I told Brian everything. He supported my leaning toward visiting Dad but reminded me to set clear boundaries. You're not that powerless 12-year-old anymore, he said. You're going on your terms, and you can leave any time. The next morning I called Dr. Reynolds and asked if she would come with me, not as my therapist, but as someone who understood the situation and could support me. She agreed right away. This could be a chance to face your past from a place of strength, she said, but only if you truly want to. I thought about the scared girl I had been, the years of healing, the life I had built, and the parents who had left me behind. Then I thought about the man in the hospital bed, facing his own mortality. Yes, I said at last. I think I need to do this, not for them, for me. The hospital hallway felt like it would never end. Dr. Reynolds and I walked toward the cardiac ICU, and each step felt heavier than the last. The smell of disinfectant, the quiet voices, and the beeping machines made my anxiety spike. We can take a break, Dr. Reynolds offered when she noticed my shallow breathing. I shook my head. If I stop, I might not start again. Ethan was waiting for us at the ICU doors. He looked relieved to see me. Dad's awake but tired from therapy, he said. Mom's at the cafeteria. I planned this so she'd be gone. And she agreed to that? I asked. Not exactly, he admitted. He told me he'd said he needed private time with Dad to talk about insurance. I could tell lying wasn't easy for him. I introduced Dr. Reynolds simply as a friend, and Ethan didn't ask questions. We got closer to Dad's room. Ethan touched my arm. Just so you're ready. He looks different, older, and, well, the surgery. I nodded, bracing myself. But nothing could prepare me for what I saw. Frank Taylor, once so intimidating, now lay small and frail in a hospital bed surrounded by wires and machines. Oxygen tubes rested in his nose. His chest was covered by a gown, but I could tell it was bandaged underneath. His eyes were closed when we walked in, but he opened them when he heard us. At first, he didn't seem to recognize me. Then his eyes widened. Jennifer, he whispered in a rough voice. It's Megan now, I said automatically. Megan, he repeated, as if tasting the name. You came. I stayed near the door. Yes. The room felt heavy with silence. 20 years of absence hanging between us. You look like your mother, he said finally. I look like Sarah Miller, I replied firmly. My adoptive mother. His face tensed, then softened. Of course I deserve that. Why did you want to see me? I asked, needing to stay in control. You're my daughter, he said. I was your daughter until you decided a 12-year-old should find her own way home from Chicago. He winced. We made a terrible mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick someone up. What you and Mum did was cruelty, dressed up as parenting, I said, my voice steady. You're right, he said quietly. There's no excuse. I've had a lot of time to think. When you're facing the end, you see things differently. Are you dying? I asked bluntly. Not yet, but this was a warning. And it makes a man think about regrets. What we did to you is my biggest regret. Not you, never you. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from either of them, but it still felt small compared to the damage they'd done. Then I heard a noise at the door. Karen Taylor stood there, frozen, holding a coffee cup and staring at me, like I was a ghost. Jennifer, she breathed. It's Megan, Ethan corrected. I turned to face the woman who had given birth to me and then abandoned me. Even now, she was neatly dressed, with styled hair and makeup, though her eyes showed her age and worry. I told you I'd set another time, Ethan said apologetically. It's fine, I said, though it wasn't. I hadn't planned to face them both at once. Karen stepped toward me like she wanted to hug me, but stopped when I stepped back. I told my brother I needed time alone with Dad to talk about insurance. I could see he didn't like lying, but he didn't argue. I introduced Dr. Reynolds as just a friend, and he didn't ask questions. As we got close to Dad's hospital room, my brother touched my arm. Just so you're ready, he said. He looks different now, older and after the surgery. I nodded, but nothing could have prepared me for seeing Frank Taylor again. In my childhood memories, he seemed so big and strong. Now, he was lying in a hospital bed, pale and hooked up to wires and tubes. A small tube helped him breathe. His chest was bandaged under his gown. At first his eyes were closed, but they opened when he heard us. For a moment he didn't know who I was, then his eyes widened. Jennifer, he whispered. It's Megan now, I said. Megan, he repeated, like he was trying the name for the first time. You came. I stayed near the door. Yes, it was quiet. 20 years of no contact sat between us. What could you say to a parent who left you? You look like your mother, he said. I look like Sarah Miller, I replied. My adoptive mother. His face tensed, then softened. Of course, I deserve that. Dr. Reynolds stood behind me for support. Ethan stood near Dad, unsure what to do. Why did you want to see me? I asked. You're my daughter. I was your daughter, I corrected, until you decided a 12-year-old could find her own way home from Chicago. He winced. We've made a mistake. No, I said. A mistake is forgetting to pick someone up. What you did was cruel. You're right, he admitted. No excuse. I've had a lot of time to think, especially now. He glanced at the machines. When you know your time might be short, you see things differently. Are you dying? I asked. Not yet, he said with a weak smile. But this was a warning. It makes you think about your regrets, and what we did to you. That's my biggest regret. Not you, never you. It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever gotten, but it wasn't enough. Then the door opened. My birth mother, Karen, froze when she saw me. It's Megan, Ethan quickly said when she called me Jennifer. She stepped forward as if to hug me, but I stepped back. You're so beautiful, she said, her eyes wet. I've thought about you every day, wondered where you were. Karen, Frank said weakly. Give her space. I suddenly needed to get out. I need some air, I said, walking toward the door. Dr. Reynolds followed. Please don't leave, Karen cried. We've missed you so much. I turned back. You missed me. You left me alone in a strange city when I was 12. You laughed as you drove away. You gave up your parental rights instead of admitting you were wrong. And now you say you miss me. Karen flinched. We were terrible parents, she admitted, crying. We didn't know how to love you. That's not an excuse, I said. Plenty of people figure it out without abandoning their kids. You're right, Frank said. We failed you completely. That was all I ever needed to hear. No excuses. Just truth. I didn't come here for apologies, I said. I came to see that you're just people now. Old, ordinary people who made choices I'll never forgive. I hope you get better. But I'm not Jennifer anymore. I'm Megan Miller. I have amazing adoptive parents, a loving husband, a career, and a good life. I don't hate you anymore, but I don't forgive you either. I don't want you in my life. Any contact goes through Ethan and I might ignore it. Karen cried harder. Frank closed his eyes, a single tear falling. We understand, he said. We left soon after. Outside, I took a deep breath of fresh air. You did great. Dr. Reynolds said, I feel like I finally took back my power, I told her. Over the next week I talked through the visit in therapy and with my family. I stayed firm on my boundaries. When my birth parents kept emailing and calling, I blocked them. Later I called my adoptive mom. Sarah, thank you. I told her for showing me what parents should be. Oh, sweetheart, she said, you've given us more than we've given you. That night, Brian and I walked our dog, Scout, as fireflies lit the summer evening. What are you thinking about? Brian asked. How the family you're born into isn't always your real family, I said. And how lucky I am to have found mine. Healing isn't a straight path, but for the first time I felt truly free. The little girl abandoned at a train station had found her way home, not to where she came from, but to the life she chose.